Hey guys, I just wanted to take a moment and tell you how proud I am of you for all of the hard work that you have put in for the last few weeks. You have built towers, catapults, and now finally today you get to culminate all of your learning into an egg drop. And I can't wait to see what you are going to do. Let's take some time to address four terms you're going to hear me use and reference a lot in our experimental setup and design today. The first term is the term you already know. Good job. That term is gravity. Gravity is the force that Earth exerts on objects as they fall back to Earth. The standard force for gravity on all objects as they fall back to Earth is about 9.8 meters per second. So when you drop something, the force of that item falling back to Earth is about 9.8 meters per second. Yes, that's fast, and it's pretty fast for an egg too. So we're going to have to find a way to slow that down. Hold on to that thought and let's talk about our next word. Our next term is velocity. Velocity has to do with speed in a direction. So anytime something is moving in physics, we say that it has velocity. Now, for our experiment today, it's going to be very important that we slow the velocity of our egg down as it is heading toward Earth or whatever object you're dropping it from. It's important to slow the velocity down so that our eggshell doesn't shatter upon impact. And impact is another vocabulary word you're going to hear me use a lot today. Impact is basically a force that we are going to be feeling as our egg falls back to Earth from gravity. Now the job of our design today is to take that impact our egg will be experiencing and spread that force out throughout not just our egg, but also our popsicle sticks, rubber bands, and napkins. So how are we going to change the impact? How are we going to alter the velocity? How are we going to slow down gravity? Those sound like absolutely crazy ideas. Well, we're all going to do that with resistance. And resistance is a force. It's another force. This force is actually going to be pushing against gravity, pushing against velocity. It's going to allow us to slow down the velocity, impact, and force of gravity on our egg. And we're going to talk about some experiments that we've already done this semester with all of these words involved, plus a few extra review words that you might have heard us use over the past few weeks. But before we do that, let's look at what an egg is actually made up of so that we can best know how to protect it. So here is a diagram of an egg. If you've boiled an egg in the last week or so for Easter egg hunts and dyeing Easter eggs, if you cut that egg in half, you would have a cross section. And that's what we see up here. I'm going to circle it in red for you. That's a cross section of an egg. And there's four really important parts to an egg. The first part is an air cell. And an air cell is basically a little pocket at the end of the egg that is going to allow for gas to be exchanged between the inner and outer shell membranes. It's also really important for that developing chick. So if you have chickens at home, that eggshell, that little air cell at the end actually allows our chick to exchange gas in and out of its egg. It's very important. If you ever boil an egg, you'll see that part of your egg is flat at the larger part at the bottom. That's where your air cell was. The next word that we're going to talk about is yolk, and the yolk is that runny yellow part of the egg. This is actually our embryo or baby chicken's food supply. Now, most of the eggs you and I eat at the grocery store have not been fertilized, so no, this isn't harmful to you in any way to eat a yolk. But if an egg is fertilized, that yolk is actually the food source for the baby chick. And it's really important because it's full of fat and lots of yummy nutrients that will help the baby chick to grow and be nice and strong when it's born. So that's the yolk. The next important word that you may or may not have heard of, but you've definitely seen before, is called chalaza. Now, chalaza in a raw egg looks like two pieces of white snot. It's a rope-like structure that connects the inner membrane of an egg to the egg yolk. So you're probably wondering, why in the world does a chalaza or chalazae, if there's more than one, need to be in this egg? That just sounds silly. Well, as the egg is traveling through the hen's body and it's growing and developing and the eggshell's being put on, before the egg is fertilized, it's really important that the yolk stays in the center of the eggshell, because if it's not, what will happen is if the egg does get fertilized, the growing chick will be pushed off to the side and it won't develop properly. So in God's infinite wisdom, he just happened to put these two really thick chalazi here, one at the top, one at the bottom, to hold the yolk right in the middle so that the baby chick can grow around it, which is really cool. God is so smart and he plans for everything. The other thing to think about too is that you can definitely see this anytime you crack an egg yolk open. You should see it right on the outside of your egg. It's right there in the pan. So the next time you make eggs, take a look and see if you can find your chalaza. And the last thing, and probably the most important for us, is the eggshell. Now an eggshell is made up mostly of calcium carbonate, and it is around the outside part of an egg. It keeps it nice and safe and protected. And it is made in the lower part of a hen's oviduct system, which is pretty cool that a hen can just layer on layers and layers of basically bone-like calcium in the middle. So it's actually really important that if you have chickens or hens at home, that you make sure they get lots and lots and lots of calcium in their diet, because if not, they'll start to lose color in their beaks and in their wattles because their body's being nutrient deprived, because eggs take up so much calcium. Now, it's important to know that calcium is a really, really strong crystalline structure. So it already has a good amount of force holding it together from the chemical makeup of the eggshell. Our job today is to make it even tougher by building a crate to protect all of this eggy goodness on the inside. What do I need for this experiment today? To do our egg protector experiment, on page 199 in your Foundations Guide, you will find a list of the following items. You will need about 50 craft sticks, around 50 rubber bands, give or take 12 napkins. You will also need a plastic egg for practice. Please do not use a real egg until you have practiced dropping your egg protector. After you have practiced dropping your egg protector, then you can switch to the real egg. That is also something that you need to consider when making your design. You should be able to easily remove your plastic egg and put a real egg inside. If you have 17,692 rubber bands wrapped around your plastic egg, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to replicate your experiment and get those around a real egg. So be thinking about that as you set up your design. So there's two scenarios that I'm going to present for you today. Scenario number one, your only job is to protect the egg. And our goal is going to be to drop an egg from a fall of about 10 to 15 feet. Now, you can stand on top of a large desk at home or even your kitchen island and drop an egg from above your head. This is from an adult standing, not a child. Or you can drop it out of a second-story window or a balcony or even from a ladder. My advice is to lay out a large plastic garbage bag, or if you have it, a large plastic tablecloth on the floor if you're dropping an egg protector device indoors. This is not because the plastic eggs will make a mess. Again, you're going to use a plastic egg to start, but popsicle sticks break, y'all, and rubber bands snap. So we want to make sure that if those things do break, you can find them easily so you don't step on them and hurt yourself. Again, please make sure for the first trial you are using a plastic egg. After you've done your trial, then you can place a real egg in the protector when it's time to test it. Now, for a little bit more of a sophisticated experimental design and setup, one that's going to require a little bit more work, you and your family have been contacted by NASA to recreate a space entry module for bringing astronauts from the International Space Station. And you're going to do an egg protector as a prototype. So some of the important things to note for this design is that your egg protector should be able to stay intact. Your egg should stay intact from 25 to 30 feet. It also should be the lightest design in the class or in your family. When you do this, again, please use a plastic egg during the design and then a real egg during our egg test. Now, you can, for the lightest design, use a kitchen skill at home, but if you don't have one, I've provided you with the amount of mass of each one of the items. One craft stick is about 1.4 grams, one rubber band is about 0.2 grams, and one facial tissue is about 1 gram. So just like for our bridge construction, you are going to need to keep track of the number of items that you've used in construction and then produce a final mass to your tutor. At test time, my recommendation is to drop the devices out of a second or third story window, or if you have a high balcony in your house. That was going to be about that 25 to 30 feet interval. Again, please make sure that you have some sort of plastic devices down, whether that's a garbage bag or a tablecloth, to protect your flooring or whatever else you have going on. Again, we don't want to smash a bunch of popsicle sticks and then step on some sharp pieces of wood. The goal here for our scenario number 2 is that the team that builds the lightest egg protector will win, while keeping your egg intact, of course. And if we have multiple people that build a egg protector that can withstand the drop from 25 to 30 feet, what we'll keep doing is we'll go higher and higher and higher when we do get to test these, and we'll see who is the winner in that way. So you're probably wondering, all this sounds really great, but how do I slow my egg down against gravity, and how do I protect my egg? So I wanted to talk to you about 4 things before we build our egg protectors that can help with these elements. And guess what? Most of them are from experiments that we've done together this semester. We can combine everything that we've learned and worked on to help us successfully build our egg protector. One of the things that we can talk about is resistance. And again, yes, we've talked about this word before. How can we resist the force of gravity and slow our velocity? Well, I don't know if you guys remember, but a couple of weeks ago we did an experiment with a paper cone, a flat piece of paper, and then a wad of paper. And we talked about that the cone was the slowest to fall in the air when we dropped them all at the same time because it had the most resistance. So how can you fold your napkin around or in your egg protector to slow and increase your resistance? That's something to think about. Another thing to think about too that will help with resistance is having lots and lots and lots of padding. Now again, we're going to try and spread that impact out, not just to our egg, but to our whole egg protector. So having lots of padding for our egg will help with the force of impact. It might be helpful for you to also consider building a crumple zone. Now, if you have been in a car for more than 2 seconds, you know that you have a front part of a car and a back part of a car. You have the engine part and the trunk. Those are not just there to look pretty and hold stuff. They are there to actually protect you. Bumpers actually serve a really important job in that if you do get in a car accident, people have engineered these vehicles so that they crumple, so that the force of the collision is absorbed by those bumpers and not by your body, so you don't get hurt. The same thing can be true with our egg protector. Can you build some sort of crumple zone as your egg protector is hitting the ground to help absorb that velocity, to help absorb that force of impact? That might be something to think about. Another item to consider, we did an experiment in this semester where we talked about the force in the center of gravity of an object. It might be helpful to consider where is your weight distribution going to be, and can you make a weighted end for your egg protector? We know that if something's got a heavier end, it's going to fall toward the heavier end of that object. So if you put all of your mass at one end and your egg at the other, is it possible to do that and design that in such a way so that the force is absorbed at the opposite end of our egg? It's just something to think about. Now, we also can think about how to spread out the force of impact with some structures that we've built. You guys have built some really amazing trellis bridges, and we talked about how strong triangles are for trellis bridges. We've also built some pretty amazing catapults and siege towers. And our siege towers especially had a repeating square pattern. Those squares were very strong. My advice to you as you're building, pick a shape, use that shape in repeating elements, and then start to think about adding in a parachute, extra padding, a crumple zone, or a weighted end to help with your impact. There really is an unlimited amount of resources and time and energy you can spend on this, but I would recommend not spending really more than 30 minutes in building your actual egg protector. Now, before we wrap up today, again, I can't stress enough to you, make sure that as you're building you use a plastic egg. You can test your experiment with the plastic egg first, and then if it works, to use a real egg for the second trial. Please remember that eggs have lots of germs in them, so we don't want to be touching them and then putting our hands in our mouth because you can get really sick. So please make sure if you're handling an egg, you are washing your hands really well. And if you're interested in just learning more about eggs, Ms. Gaglio and myself, I've spent a lot of time studying eggs and how they grow and develop with animal development. It's actually super amazing how God has designed and created just the way that birds form and how the way that humans form. It's very similar. If that's something that's really interesting to you, I recommend you check out this website at Enchanted Learning. They have some really great coloring sheets and about different parts of the egg. And again, you can just see how God has made such a special little niche for these birds to grow and develop in. With that being said, I can't wait to see some of your egg protectors, and I hope you guys have a really great time experimenting. Good luck, and try not to get too messy.